and we wanted to actually give Facebook money to run ads to promote the book. And we ran into rejections from Facebook with no explanation as to why they wouldn't allow us to run some of the ads that we ran. And so they have the ability to, largely, kneecap your ability to get out a message based on keywords without any explanation. It's a dangerous precedent.
It's my pleasure to welcome Harlan Hill to the show. He is the author of a new book that just came out entitled They're Not Listening: How the Elites Created the Nationalist Populist Revolution. Harlan, welcome. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Good. It's good to have you. Congratulations on the book. And you are making an impact when you are being censored by the big tech companies. And sadly, not only does that include social media, but it also includes the biggest book-selling platform in the world. So for people to argue that these folks don't have any power is absolutely crazy. They have all the power. So we live in a new version of Fahrenheit 451, don't we?
Yeah, that's put it lightly. I think in some cases, I think they're going beyond Ray Bradbury and George Orwell. When we were looking to roll out this book, we wanted to leverage the large followings that Ryan and I both have on Facebook.
So you were running ads to promote the book, and what did the ads say that were rejected?
Oh, it was just basically an overview of the book. Trying to explain to people how we reached this point, how there was a wave of national populism that has swept the globe, not just in the United States, but in the UK with Brexit, and France, and the Netherlands, and New Zealand, and Australia, and so on. It was not anything inflammatory at all. And so we were really shocked. And if we had just been given an explanation, we could have modified anything that they thought was outside of their what they thought would be appropriate. But by no means were those ads inflammatory or anything out of the ordinary. It was basically just a pared down version of what we've listed on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Target and elsewhere to sell the book.
Yeah, well, and soon, and you never know what these tech companies are doing behind the scenes because they are so disgusting and so scary. They can make your book not show up in the search results on Amazon. They can do all kinds of things. Yep. We know that Jeff Bezos hates Trump. He hired 21 reporters at the Washington Post, or assigned 21 reporters simply to go after Trump in 2016. It's just unbelievable how we got to this point of an Orwellian technocracy. It is incredibly scary. And folks, it is. No matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, you really need to worry about this. This is possibly the scariest thing the world is facing right now. It's worse than COVID-19. YouTube just demonetized me for saying that. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable.
And it's not just the social media networks. It's also the newsrooms around the country. And I'll give you an example that we go into in the book. The media is obsessed with democratic representation, right? There are countless stories and tweets by the media elites about how various institutions around their country don't reflect the makeup of the country. You can just Google a phrase like, quote, there aren't enough women in, or there aren't enough people of color in, and you'll get over 479 million and 200 million articles and videos respectively on each of those subjects. But what about the media itself? There is a total lack of diversity in newsrooms. And we all know what some of them are. Only 7% of newsrooms are made up of Republicans. And most of them live in the Acela corridor between New York and DC. The people in the social media companies that are making big decisions, the people in these newsrooms that are deciding what news is important, what voices we hear, they don't even know a Trump voter. According to one study by Politico, 72% of the publishing industry live in landslide counties where Hillary Clinton won by more than 30 points in 2016. So there's got to be more diversity beyond, just getting more women, more people of color. There needs to be more conservative voices in these newsrooms and at the social media networks so that they better reflect the country that they represent.
Yeah, and it's so interesting in so many ways, or really so tragic, because as any rational, logical person knows, the left has done more to hurt minorities than any party. I mean, certainly more than the Republicans. Look at the cities that they control. They're absolute disasters. They have the highest rates of police brutality. They have, poverty, just problems galore. I mean, look at what they did to a once flagship city like Detroit. They destroyed that city. They destroy every place they go. It's unbelievable. Look at what's happened to the state of California. It's an absolute disaster. Why is this though? What is with the rich elitist that I mean, do they hate themselves? Is it like a self-loathing thing? I mean, they're vastly white. They're rich. They're hypocrites. They want to defund police departments because they have their own private security and they live behind walls, fences, and gates. What gives? I mean, how can they rationalize this?
Well, before President Trump, there really wasn't as much daylight between the Democrat and Republican Party as there is today. The thesis of the book is that the global elites that are beholden to big corporations have turned their back on working and middle class people. And we've seen this in places like Detroit,
they turned their back a long time ago on lower class people.
Absolutely.
Because they've made them poorer, and they've caused them to have less of a voice. Although it's counterintuitive because you think they have more of a voice, but they just don't.
Well, and it's taken, there are two major issues that we take a really big deep dive in the book. The first is globalization. People who had good paying, multi-generational jobs, manufacturing cars, manufacturing parts, manufacturing steel in places like Ohio and Michigan and elsewhere.
They've hollowed out those jobs. They've traded them away in terrible trade deals. Yeah.
In terrible trade deals. And what have those people been told to do? The people that have been displaced by globalism, they've been told by the global ruling elites across the political spectrum to shut up and learn how to code. That's the compassion that working middle class and lower class people in this country have been shown for decades. And finally, you had a president in Donald Trump that was giving a voice to them. And then there's a second string here that has gutted the American middle class, working class, and lower class. And that's endless illegal migration. And the effect of it is driving down wages. It is suppressing wage growth, and it is driving crime into people's communities when they can at least afford it. And it's also driving drugs. The opioid epidemic is very well documented. And there's been basically zero recognition of what's been done. And the Democrats don't just deserve blame for this. The old establishment ruling Republicans deserve credit for it too, because through the George W. Bush administration,
you mean to say blame, right?
Yeah. Yes. They are to blame.
The establishment Republicans are to blame, and the Democrats are to blame, right?
Absolutely, they're both to blame. Yes. They're both to blame. I mean, George W. Bush, during his administration, illegal immigration exploded. And so
under Ronald Reagan it did. I mean,
under Reagan it did. Yeah. Absolutely. And so finally, there's a reset here, and I think that it really scares them that they've lost their stranglehold on power. That's what Trump represents.
No, the impoverished, formerly left Democrat people have woken up, and I think that was best typified right after the Trump election, when NPR, no less, went into a town in Michigan that has gone Democrat for decades, and they probably didn't want to hear this or run it even, but they stuck a microphone in front of someone, and I heard this with my own ears, and the person said, "Look, in the last election, all Hillary Clinton was talking about was identity politics. We just want a job.
That's it.
And
that's it.
And that's what Trump offered. And he brought it.
Yeah. Trump presented this very convenient reset in American political discourse. We don't care who you are, what you look like, what your background is. It's rather egalitarian. We don't care who you're married to. The house is burning down. We don't care whose bed you're sleeping in, basically. It was a temporary reset. It's like, we're not going to talk about these issues because they're not the most important issue that we're facing today. And it allowed us to move forward and really start to address things that weren't just distractions, things that affected every average everyday American. And you saw the benefits. It started to pay dividends, this refocusing. We were renegotiating trade deals. Manufacturing was coming back here to the total of millions of new jobs. You had wages finally starting to rise for the first time in a very long time. And you saw the stock market, reach all new heights.
Longest economic expansion in world history.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Define, though, just give our listeners and viewers a definition. What is a global elite? I mean, people throw these phrases around. What is that exactly?
Well, I think that the best way to describe them, they're largely the beneficiaries of large corporations that want there to be as few barriers to entry, as little friction as possible to sell their commodities and manufacture their commodities and provide services at as low of a cost as possible.
Right. And don't forget the other thing they do is they exploit the cheapest possible labor. They exploit. I mean, Jeff Bezos has got to be the worst. I mean, it's just incredible, the stories that come out of Amazon of the exploitation. But all the tech companies do it. I mean, they're just terrible like this, and they buy markets. They underprice things. Look at Airbnb and Uber. Will those companies ever make money? I mean, you know that there's inflation baked into the equation because when a company like Uber just loses these vast amounts of money and basically they have no real business. A legitimate business makes a profit. Okay. A fake business raises money. Okay. That's not a real business. Okay. But we've all become so hypnotized with this tech revolution that we just believe in a BS house of cards economy in these businesses.
Well, and can I also add to that? There's also been a total abdication of Western principles by these large tech companies. You look at Google, you look at Apple, and how they've capitulated to, for instance, Chinese censorship in order to gain entry to the Chinese market. And it sets an incredibly dangerous precedent. And it smacks of just how disingenuous their charges against the president have been, when in fact they seek and actively enable massive censorship of a brutal regime in China.
Yeah.